blogging in the world, and I think we've done it. I think when I was asked to put this panel together, media is what we live by. It's what we do. It's how we wake up. It's how we breathe. It is for me anyway. And so I thought we'd bring three different people that'll demonstrate three different modes of this media, and talk about radio, talk about blogging, and talk about the print media. And I'm going to ask these individuals three different questions. First, the background on how they got started in the media and how their particular form of media developed and what they think of it. And then we're going to talk about what they're doing now with that particular form of media, and then we're going to go at the end and look at what their plans are and what they think the potential for each of those types of media are as far as moving the country forward and in providing a progressive voice. So we'll start with Jeff. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Jeff has been covering DailyKos local events. This is our 11th event here in Asheville. And Jeff's been a huge supporter. He's invited me on the radio many times to promote our events, and he's just a great voice for progress in our community, and we're really proud to have him in our community. So Jeff, how did you get started, and I'm kind of interested in how the whole, there's, like you said, you're only one of 4 local progressive radio.
That's right. We didn't specify local.
Yeah, right.
I didn't assassinate a bunch of other progressive.
But when you think, it's kind of incredible when I found this out. 4 local progressive radio hosts in the country? I mean, there's what? How could that be? And he's one of them. So how did this get started, and how did we get blessed with your presence?
Well, blessed is totally a relative term. But as far as the progressive radio thing goes, it's Asheville, first of all. So that already works in our favor. Kind of going back a little bit, I spent a lot of years working in the theater and the arts industry, and like a lot of people at the turn of this century, in 2002, 2003, progressives became very concerned about what was happening in our country thanks to our leadership. And thank goodness the technology came along at the right time. I tried my hand at blogging early on because I think a lot of us have this in common. We felt as though we wanted to make our voices heard. The internet was still kind of forming into what it has become. And the need to share thoughts and ideas was so strong because we all watched the television, we all listened to the radio, and what we heard, we knew was not completely true. And we needed to find other like-minded individuals. Now, I wasn't savvy enough to jump onto the DailyKos early on, which is a true pioneer as far as this form of communication goes, really world-altering. And Marcos is here, of course, and just a big thumbs up to him. DailyKos changed the way the conversation was being held in this country and in this world. I was unfortunately on Yahoo 360, so nobody saw any of my blogs. I don't even know if they still exist in any archival forms. But that's where I started, and in 2004, somewhere in there, I started as a playwright. I started writing an anti-war play about the Iraq War called This War is Live. It was produced in Charleston, South Carolina in 2008, and a very kind of anti-dark comedy, if you will, about war. And I might have been the only person conflicted about McCain losing the presidency because my play no longer was relevant. I had this wonderful script and this idea, and it was like, oh, well, short shelf life, so I have to wait 30 years for it to have some historical perspective. But as far as 880 The Revolution goes, the radio station started maybe about a dozen years ago. Somebody might know more specifically. 2003, 2004, a long time, the same time as Air America Radio, this right-wing radio push that came along. Air America, of course, had its problems and went away, but progressive radio stuck. Thank you, George Bush. There was a need for it, and Asheville just sort of made sense as a place for that to happen. I know I was an avid NPR listener myself, and I was doing theater around the time of the 2004 election, and I was so angry about some of the things going on, and someone backstage one night said to me, have you heard of 880 The Revolution? It's a progressive talk radio station, and the morning after the 2004 election, I switched from NPR because I was tired of it being even-handed. I actually wanted to be pissed off a little bit. And so I was listening to 880 from that point forward, and almost 3 years ago, when the local host, who had started a local show back in 07, 08, he decided to leave. He reached out to me, and 3 weeks later I was the new host on the radio, so that's how that started. Yeah, is that answering your question at all?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, great. Yeah, I'm sorry about Yahoo 360.
I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to look for my blog post.
They need to be preserved.
So, Johnny, how did you get started, and what was your dream, and how did you come up with getting urban news going? It's, by the way, we live in a little town called Old Fort. It's at the bottom of the big mountain going east, and there's urban news there everywhere, and we have a great population there, and it's just great to finally meet you. So, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got this great idea off the ground.
Well, it's not quite as intense as Jeff's information, but growing up in Asheville and moving away and staying away from, well, not totally staying away, but coming back only twice a year. When I finally moved back to Asheville, I had to take a walking tour because it was such a shock to me how the town had grown. But what did not happen was the growth in the minority communities, particularly the African American community here in Asheville. I will have to say this, and I own it. It's on my birth certificate. But anyway, I spoke with a lot of friends, close friends and family members, and I was sharing this with a special friend one day who asked me, why am I so compelled to do what I do? And I said, well, it's a passion, it's a charge. I have to carry on this medium. I have to do it for those people that are disenfranchised, underserved, and underprivileged. Oftentimes we forget that within the spectrum of our community, there are people who are just totally connected and want to be empowered, but can't in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And Urban News serves 11 counties in Buncombe County. In Western North Carolina. And it coerces throughout these counties, and people see that there's information in the publication that they can benefit from. So with the help of a wonderful, wonderful staff of people who have the same passion as I do, we make it happen on a monthly basis. So it is what it is, and I hope that we can get each one of you to join us in our mission of empowering people through this progressive movement. Okay, that's it.
In so many places, so many millions of examples of this very thing, of someone saying, look, there's a void here, and I have a little skill here, I have a little history in this, I have a new inspiration, and let's just do this. I'm scared, but let's do it. And that's how it works, that's how we do it. I mean, it's in every community, in every neighborhood in the country, someone stands up and says, I can do this, I've got some skill. Yeah. Tom? Nice to see you. Thanks for coming by. Great to see you yesterday, too.
Thanks.
So how did Scrutiny Hooligans get started, and where did that name come from, anyway?
Frankly, I don't know. I came in late in the game. I got actually started in print. I wrote an op-ed for the local paper, and the first thing they did was run it on the front of their op-ed section on Sunday, and I was like, that's a mistake. So I kept going. I ended up being a community columnist for about a year, writing twice a month. And I started my own blog, but I also knew Gordon Smith, who had started Scrutiny Hooligans with some friends, just as a way to keep in touch with each other. They were college buddies, and one was on the West Coast. After working for a while and plugging away at my own blog and also being in the, writing twice a month in the local paper, Gordon asked me to join him. Gordon actually started Scrutiny Hooligans with his friends, and actually Justin Krebs always asked me about Gordon, because Gordon also started the first drinking liberally here. He became the cranky blogger hippie that was irritating all the local politicians, because he was writing and saying stuff about them that they didn't necessarily like. Well, now Gordon is on Asheville City Council, so he's basically turned that over to me. But since then, it's you know, the focus has shifted somewhat. He had a real local focus for the local politics on Scrutiny Hooligans, and he asked me to come in mostly to do national stuff. And last August, Digby asked me to join her, and so now I've got a slot in the morning every day at Hullabaloo.
I discovered Screw a month before I discovered DailyKos, and met Gordon. I'm a juggler, a lot of you know, and he does the devil stick things, and so we met, and we had a commonality of being performers and both being kind of fanatical brand new bloggers, and so we just hit it off very well, and it's a great relationship that Gordon has with this city, and you can't beat it. Jeff, what are you doing right now to make your show relevant to progressive causes and to dissemination of vital information?
Well, that last part changed my answer, the vital information. I am working on a Donald Trump impersonation.
Show us!
Oh, can I comb this hair over a little bit?
Oh, Randall, you're terrific. You're terrific. But don't touch the hair. It's real. I can assure you it's real, but don't touch the hair. No, please, it's better on the radio when you can't see it.
You put a squirrel on your head.
That's it, right there. We do have a camera in the studio. So now, as far as working on things, of course, politics and news, it evolves on almost a daily basis. But one of my pet projects has been, and this goes back to April or May, thinking about the city council elections. One of the things that I find very, very important that the majority of voters don't are local elections, because of course what happens locally is what you're going to feel first. And we always see these historic low turnouts for local elections, which I think is just a travesty. And if we can, as a society, start from the local elections and make those important and make those big, you start with a seed and you grow a big tree, instead of looking up at the top of the tree and hoping the squirrel throws you a few nuts. So that's been my philosophy, and so I thought I'm going to interview all of the city council candidates, and I'm not going to start with heavy politics. I'm going to start with an hour-long radio interview with each candidate that is just a get-to-know-you session. It's a conversation. One of the candidates played high school football. We talked for 10 minutes about his high school football career. One of them owned a record store 25 years ago. We talked about vinyl for 5 minutes. I wanted the people listening to see these candidates as real human beings. I think one of the mistakes we make is putting that separation between us and the reality of these people as candidates. And I wanted to take that separation away. And it was a great idea when I figured there were about 6 or 7 possible candidates running. All told, if everybody had gotten in and stayed in, there would have been 17. As it turns out, there are only 15, but as of 2 weeks ago, I finished all 15 interviews. They're up on our website on demand. You can listen to each and every one of them individually. We've aired them live on the radio show, and I want the citizens to get to know their candidates as people. You know, it's easier to vote for someone if you like them as a person. It also makes you think, because Dr. Carl Mumpower is a real right-wing agitator in this town, and he's one of the candidates. And I had him on for an hour, and I liked him as a person. and I know listeners listening liked him as a person. And so it makes them think harder, and it makes them work harder when they go to the ballot box. It's like, I like this guy. I don't believe in his politics at all, but I like this guy. I can understand where he's coming from now. And aren't we better served if we have that knowledge going in? So they're all done, and they're up on the website, and the primary is a couple of weeks away, and there will be 6 people left, and I will have them back as well, and we'll get deeper into politics as soon as that happens. And then next year I'll be writing the follow-up to my book, Red State, White Guy Blues, here in North Carolina.
Thanks, Jeff. That is, by the way, 880therevevolution.com, 880therevevolution.com. And Jeff's show is on 3 to 6 every day from Monday through Friday.
Call letters.
WPEK.
WPEK is the, that's it.
Live stream.
And it's live streamed.
It is live streamed.
AM, it's 880 AM.
I get, and this is the beautiful thing about Asheville, I get emails. I got an email from a lady in Washington State. I have callers from Ohio, Texas. There's one that came down from Ohio recently.
That's right.
That's right. Good to see you. And all over the country who are tuning in because they know that Asheville has something special going on and they want to know what it is.
We're here to tell you about it today, obviously. Johnny, what's Urban News doing right now to move us forward?
Well, what we're doing is engaging with some of the candidates. The safe mode for us is that we don't make the news, we just write it. So we look to have some information about all 15 candidates in our upcoming October edition of Urban News. I want to add to some of the things that Jeff said in regards to the candidates we have on the slate for this upcoming primary. You have to look at the human side of it. Oftentimes we put information in the Urban News that people don't particularly care for, but again, I have to fall back on, we just don't make the news. We have to be more so objective in what we put out to the community. So I urge you that if there is a good ground game going, that you engage the Urban News. We'll make sure that it gets out there to the communities that you want to focus on and serve. Thank you.
Tom, we talked about this a little bit before the show, this panel. You describe yourself as almost like a caretaker of Scrutiny Hooligans, but at the same time you reach out and you have a national voice through Hullabaloo and Crooks and Liars and a lot of other sources and print media as well. What do you see our role as local individual bloggers, whether we're blogging for DailyKos or at DailyKos, or we're blogging for just a local screw or your only small little blog of your own? What are we doing to make that happen? Is it empowering? Is it important? Is it worth our while to be doing this? How do we know we have an audience? When I first started blogging, I'd write, oh my gosh, they're going to love this, and -5 people saw it. So it's just how do we keep that alive of this kind of media? What do we do?
Well, right now, I'm not exactly sure if this is a blessing or a curse. The upside of things having gone so sour in North Carolina is that there's a lot of focus on North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's why Patsy came to Netroots Nation in Phoenix this summer, trying to contact a lot of folks in the activist community and bring some of that talent to bear and focus on North Carolina. So the fact that we've got a lot of interesting energy and a lot of interesting challenges in North Carolina means that I have a platform for talking about that. I wrote this morning about Reverend Barber's talk last night, yesterday at St. James AME, and that went out on Hullabaloo. And in terms of the local activism, that's about all I can manage. The irony is, I'm not in town 5 days a week. I'm a road warrior by trade, and I am not as tightly connected with the local politics, although I work the election cycle. The other thing that has changed a lot since Scrutiny Hooligans was basically the go-to place is the rise of Facebook. Facebook gave a lot of people locally optional places where they could interact essentially unmoderated and discuss wide-ranging stuff. And so we have a couple of local Facebook pages. There's an Asheville Politics. I think it's still around, is Buncombe Politics, which is your Tea Party venue. And so a lot of the traffic that we used to have has migrated to that area, but at the same time, people are getting really fed up with Facebook. And mostly what I do, Scrutiny Hooligans these days, is basically cross-posting from what I put up every day at Digby. But we do have some other stuff. And I'm kind of caretaking it on the chance that people are eventually going to get so fed up with Facebook they'll bail, and we'll still be here. So.
Jeff, what are you going to do for going forward? What are your plans the next year, the next, not just this election cycle in 2016, but how can a local radio station with a progressive bend move the country forward in the future? What are your plans? What are your ideas? What are you juggling?
Asks the juggler. There's a lot that we can do. Being progressive talk radio means that we live as a minority voice on the airwaves. Very much like Tom was talking about Facebook, the world of podcasting has risen up and is sort of knocking on the door of becoming the future of radio, if you will. In fact, we podcast everything we do so that people can find it and listen to it on demand. So the dynamics of radio are changing a great deal. And fortunately, I came into it without a strong radio background, so I'm okay with changes and going into the future and finding a new direction. I hope to continue the coverage the way that we have been doing it as far as local politics goes. I've participated in the Mountain Moral Monday events. I believe, probably the only radio station to broadcast the entirety of an event like that uninterrupted, the full speeches and so forth. I was at the AME church yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon with Reverend Barber. I recorded the whole speech, and I rushed out the door and ran straight onto the airwaves at 3 o'clock, and an hour later my producer had the full audio of yesterday's speech up on our website as a podcast. It's that sort of stuff that I hope to do, and just keep pushing it out there, keep using all of the different facets of radio and the audio technology that's there. An interesting thing that I may do in the near future, I was invited by an organization to travel with them in October, but it's not happening this year, maybe next spring, going with a solar light company that's putting their U.S. headquarters here in Asheville. What they do is they provide single-room solar lights for African villages that are off the grid. And they wanted me to go there, and although since they're off the grid, I'm like, I'm not sure how this works because you want me to broadcast back to the U.S. Where do I plug in? But I'm sure they've got that figured out. So sometime in 2016, I may be taking 880 The Revolution to Malawi, Africa, and spending a week installing solar lights and then broadcasting it back from Africa. So that's on the horizon. And
Let there be light.
let there be light. We got it. And hopefully, when Bernie Sanders comes to Asheville, we'll hang out and have a whole show with him. So we'll see.
And I've been trying to talk Jeff into it. I think I've got him almost close. We should be having a DailyKos radio hour.
We will.
Monthly coming up.
Soon.
Anyway, so we'll keep you informed of that. What's the future look like for urban news, Johnny?
Well, I think this upcoming October, we're going to particularly pay attention to the ground game to the candidate and see how they engage their news. We're going to be following pretty closely to see what their advocacy is, to see how they get out to the community and report that to our readers.
What is your readership in that area in the
Oh
counties?
my goodness.
I put you on the spot, sorry.
You sure did. It's vast.
there's copies of Urban News on all your tables, so, and there's some more outside. So please pick up a copy and look into this great publication. Thanks for all you do. Tom, what's the future hold for us here, and how can we do better? How can we make our voices louder?
Well, I have kind of an inside-outside strategy myself. On the one hand, I get to blog on a national level, and on the other hand, I also work inside the Democratic Party in North Carolina, so I get to sort of work the inside game, and then I get, as a blogger, I get to throw stones from the outside. So it's kind of best of both worlds. But what I also find is that tapping into the activist community on the national level, and it's partly through blogging and partly through going to Netroots Nation. We've been going since 2009, and that's one of the reasons we asked Patsy to come on this summer, is because there is such a critical mass of activism and talent and experience that you run into at Netroots every year. It's like a big high school reunion, but it is also some really high-powered people, and the point of getting her to go was knowing she can't go in 2016. And tapping into there, and by the end of it, she's trading business cards, and people are pestering me, going, "When can I come down and help you?" So we're working that game going forward. We're working some training programs also that I'm working on, and the fact that I get to work both sides, the party side and the blogger side, seems to amplify a lot of what I get to do. So it gives you some street cred and a little more clout than you would be just being your local party grunt.
When we were trying to recruit Patsy, I was trying to put that panel together, and Tom said, "Well, I think we can get her. She so wants to meet Marcos." And so thanks, Marcos, for showing up. So we get the chairman of the North Carolina Democratic Party. Any questions, folks?